What up, guys? It's Harry Wilmington here. Welcome to Harry Dating Convos. This is where we talk about dating in a real way that's designed to help you guys figure out how to change your dating lives and get the women that you desire. I'm your host, Harry Wilmington. And on today's show, we are going to be talking about people pleaser women. Specifically, are they good or bad to date? And as a person that's been in the dating game for a while, women get a reputation about, you date them and they want to fight you on things and be difficult and they don't want to trust your leadership. But I've actually found that the opposite can also be true. There are many women out there that actually want to, in a real way, be there for their partner, do for them, and not cause too much of a hassle and follow his lead, And so I've been able to experience women like that as well. And I've noticed that this is a topic that doesn't get talked about too much, is that there are a lot of women that grow up in the world and they're taught to be people pleasers. And we're going to define a people pleaser as a woman that wants to make sure that everybody around her is happy by way of doing things that is going to be as pleasing to other people as possible, regardless of if it's good for her to do or not. And I stress that because you as a guy may be dating a woman and think to yourself, man, this woman's great. We get along all the time. I don't have any fights with her. We never argue. She's always down to do the things that I want to do. She's never complaining. And you might think that's great. Like you might think this is a great woman to date and there are no problems here. And I want to assure you that although that on some level could be true, there are still things that you need to be cognizant of when it comes to dating a people pleaser woman. Because I've seen these scenarios play out where a guy is dating a woman that seemingly never causes any kind of hassle and never causes any kind of trouble and is always down to do the things he wants to do. And then 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the relationship, he gets the wife or the girlfriend coming to him and saying, hey, so I'm not happy and I'm leaving. And the guy is sitting there baffled, like, why don't you want to I thought things were going so great. And then you find out she's been resentful this whole time. She's been unhappy. She actually has been unhappy for a while, but didn't want to say it out loud, or she knew how you would take it. And so she was just not trying to cause any turmoil. And now she's gone. And you as a guy are sitting there thinking, but if she would have just told me what was going on, or that she was unhappy, or that she didn't want to always do the things that I was wanting to do, then I could have fixed the problem. But here's the thing about women that are people pleasers is that part of their identity is not doing that, is trying to act as though everything's totally fine and that everything you're doing is great and nothing ever bugs her and she's always willing to overreach. And so you as the guy, as annoying as this is going to sound, because I know on these shows, I preach a lot about how men need to be mindful of what they're doing and knowing how to monitor things and taking leadership. And sometimes they're like, but Harry, why don't you tell women what they're, because this is a guy show. And the women I talk to in my real life, I tell them, hey, on your end of things, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z. But you as the guy, if you're dating somebody that is a people pleaser, there are things that you're going to have to do to make sure that her people-pleasing ways don't cause the destruction of your relationship. Because, again, a people pleaser, which for reasons we'll go into, but people pleasers are not always so forthcoming with things that are not pleasing them. And the reality is that if you're not aware of that, or you don't know ways to figure out that that's going on, then you're going to lose a potentially great relationship to a woman that initially is meaning well by being a people pleaser, but is also unaware that on her end of things too, it's going to eventually cause her to lose interest and to the detriment of the relationship, cause her to want to jump out. Okay. So we're going to get into all that. As always, this show is brought to you by my website, introvertdatingsuccess.com. You can go to that website to check out my ebooks, audiobooks, and my main program, Introvert Dating Success Academy Community, whereby I have so many video courses and so many ebooks there that are designed to help you be a better dater, to better understand women, and to get the relationships that you want. For those of you that are watching on TikTok, you can also go to youtube.com/Harry Wilmington to check out the show and ask questions live in the chat, because I can see people joining, but I can't really know when to look and answer, But anyway, so with that said, let us get into the topic at hand. All right. So let's go into this. To start off with, I was just, before I got on here, I watched a woman named Pearl Davis. She used to have she still has a show on YouTube called Just Pearly Things, but I think it just now goes by Pearl Daily. And she was talking about the standard definition of what makes a good wife, or a feminine woman rather. And she detailed a situation she went through when she was hosting shows in England. And she had a woman come onto her show that recognized that everybody else on set may potentially be hungry. So I'm going to play that part of the clip, and then you're going to hear her talk about a description of a feminine woman and how this plays into the whole people pleasing idea. So for those of you that are on TikTok, I'm showing this on YouTube as well, but I'm going to bring this up to the screen and play this clip here. So where's the clip? Here we go. Okay. Check this out, guys.
One of the most feminine women the most feminine woman I met in my year of shows, she comes on the show and she just starts like baking in my kitchen. And at first you think, what is this woman doing just baking in my kitchen? But she saw that I was really stressed out because we had a ton of people there. And she just figured that people would be hungry and anticipated it. No one had to tell her. And she made the best dessert. Oh my gosh, these desserts were so good. And I thought to myself, that is a prime example of femininity.
Okay, so first let's break down, right? So this lady came on the show, saw that other people were potentially hungry, and without being told what to do, she just went into the kitchen and started cooking food. So this is an example of a woman that, in a positive way, mind you, but she's being able to read the room, and she's recognizing, she's anticipating needs. People here have been here for a while. It's getting hot. People are probably going to be hungry. I know how to cook. You know what would be pleasing to everybody here if they had something to eat. And I know how to cook, so I'm going to go into the kitchen and cook some stuff. Notice, Pearl herself, she didn't ask this woman to go into the kitchen. None of the guys there were being toxically masculine by telling her, you lady, get to the kitchen. This is a woman that is divorced and currently dating somebody. She of her own accord went into the kitchen and decided to just cook a meal, okay? So we're gonna get into why that is based on this Pearl's definition of what femininity is.
Now, this woman, it wasn't like she wasn't even married, right? So she was divorced, she wasn't married. But it taught me that there's a difference between being married and being a wife. Many women get married, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a wife. And that's actually something that, she said to me. So what is a wife?
Here we go.
A wife means being a support system to a man. A wife means thinking of others before yourself. Many women sign up for this role and are not prepared for what it entails. It means eating his food every day instead of yours. It means living where he wants to live instead of where you want to live. It means not traveling or going out because you would spend too much time away from your kids. It means getting married on his timeline, not yours. Remember, the most feminine woman I met out of 1,000 women was a divorced, unmarried woman in a relationship. But she had that aura that makes you feel at home.
Okay, so I wanted to point out what she said because she brought up a lot of things there about this idea of what femininity is. And this is important because this is the narrative that women at large are being taught, is that in order to be feminine, you need to be able to sacrifice yourself for your man. You cook the things he wants to eat. You go the places he wants to go. And hey, we can argue all day about like if this is toxic or not. I think there's always levels to this stuff. But suffice to say, the point is that a lot of women are being taught this, and they're being taught, hey, in order to be a good person in society, you need to basically, whatever needs that you have, you need to push those to the side and sacrifice them for the community at large, because it goes beyond just her sacrificing for a guy, right? Like women will sacrifice for their families, sacrifice for like their brother, their sister, their aunts. I know relatives of mine that are women that have sacrificed like their time and money to other male relatives or relatives in general when they didn't necessarily have the means or resources to do that. But they thought, but in order to be a good person and keep that person in my good graces, I need to sacrifice for the betterment of them, okay? So I'm stressing that women at large are taught to be people pleasers, okay? And some, again, this is a levels thing because some do it more than others. Like some women have been able to know, okay, I want to be generally nice and be cordial and get along with people. But if something comes along that I don't agree with or that I don't feel like I want to do, I got to learn how to, in a nice way, say that I don't want to do that. And then there are some women that when they're growing up in their families, they are made to feel as though if they're not sacrificing at all times, regardless of how they feel about something, then they are a bad person. They're doing a disservice. And how dare they not do that for the greater good? And so women that grow up in these kind of households, they're going to grow up to think that regardless of, again, what they're feeling or what they want to do, that at the end of the day, it's going to be better to sacrifice for the person that they're with than to take their own needs into account. All right. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to get into a few reasons why some women are people pleasers. So for the first reason is that obviously, like I said, cultural conditioning, social conditioning, and in many cultures, women are taught to be nurturing and be agreeable and be conflict avoidant, especially in women's own circles. Like, I know a lot of stuff gets thrown onto men, but let's be real, especially for the ladies watching, like women are the primary ones that are keeping others in check. Because women are more community-based, they're typically the ones that are like, hey, so it's the reason why, like, if there's women in a circle and one gets like a better job or starts to earn more money than the others, she can't just come out and be like that and be like, hey, I make a lot more money now, whatever. She has to like dumb that down in a way where, yeah, she got a raise, but you know what? At the end of the day, I'm still just like all of you guys. And so part of that also comes with, they learn that, okay, I need to make sure that in order to stay the same, I'm still willing to make equal sacrifices, if not more sacrifices, to show that I'm so much down to help other people out that I'm going to completely get rid of my needs altogether, because in society, I'm taught that's what gives me my value. The second reason why women become people pleasers is to avoid rejection. And this really cuts deep for women because, you know, women inherently know that if they don't want to be alone in the world, and they don't want to be left to themselves, that on some level, they're going to have to be agreeable. They're going to have to be willing to compromise things. And so, you know, and being rejected means that they're basically being told that you're not allowed to be around anymore. We don't want you here. We're not going to support you. We're not going to give you any kind of resources. You are out effectively. So on some deeper levels, part of the reason women will people please is because they don't want that. There's a real threat of being alone and not being able to have people help them. And so sometimes that means that they'll just jump in and volunteer for stuff or say yes to things that they wouldn't want to, because getting the rejection is worse to them than doing the activity that they're being asked to do, even if, again, it's to their detriment or it's something they don't actually want to do. The third reason why a woman will become a people pleaser is because of her self-worth. Again, women are taught that your self-worth is inherently tied to the sacrifices you are willing to make for your friends, for your husband, for your kids. And so, yeah, we've taught them over time that if you want to feel like you're doing the best you can possibly do, it means that you need to be trying to figure out how many people you can possibly help and sacrifice for at any given time, all right? And again, there's some pros and cons that come with that. And then, of course, there's the old standard trauma and anxiety. You know, a person that's gone through a lot of anxiety, they may be really tied to this idea of like, you know, I need to find that one person I can trust. And if they just take me in, then I'll be willing to do anything that it takes to keep them around. And so they start developing people-pleasing behaviors in an attempt to try to keep people in their good graces. Now, there's obviously other negatives that can arise from people that are being people pleasers. You know, they're trying to please people because they're trying to manipulatively get their way into various spaces, or they're not really that way, but they're doing that in hopes that eventually they're going to be able to like do that to get to a better position. There are women that are people pleasers with the sole intent of manipulating and using people. We're not talking about those people in this broadcast because I talk about them immensely on other videos that you can check out on my YouTube channel, as well as in my program at my website, all right? So, but with that said, I want to go now into what are actually some of the positives of dating a people pleaser woman, because there are positives and negatives to this, and I think it would be disingenuous to not highlight some of the positive benefits that arise from you as a guy dating a woman that is a people pleaser. So let's go into some of those. So to start off with, a person that is a people pleaser is going to be showing support and care. You know, they tend to be very highly attentive to what their partner's needs, obviously, because if they're trying to people please, they need to have a radar for what's going to actually be pleasing to you. And so this is a woman that's going to go above and beyond to make sure that you are feeling valued and appreciated. And I think both people in any coupledom should be doing that. Not that they should be self-sacrificing all day, but they should be trying to do things that show support and care to their partner in an attempt to show that, hey, you know what? I actually value you as an individual to the point where I think that some things are worth doing a bit more for because you're the person that's in my life on a consistent basis. I think there's nothing wrong with that inherently, okay? Another positive of dating a people pleaser woman is that there's going to be less initial conflict, I'll say, and I'll get into what that means later, but there's going to be less initial conflict because the thing about a people pleaser is they don't really want to have a whole lot of conflict. Like they're going to try to make sure that they can try to keep things as peaceful as possible and make you as happy as possible. And ideally, again, you're doing the same for them. But I'm just saying on the woman's side of things, like they're not trying to have a whole lot of conflict. So they're not going to try to do too much to rock the boat. And this in turn could potentially be seen as a good thing. Obviously, I'll talk to you later about how that could be a bad thing, but less conflict, at least on the guy side of things, is always great because you as a guy, you should be focusing on your mission and trying to go out there and get your goals accomplished so you can bring in more money and more support to the family. And so the less things you have that are conflicting with that, especially not having a partner that's going to be argumentative all the time, that's actually great. Another positive of dating a people pleaser is selflessness. They're going to be exhibiting genuine acts of kindness, and that can result in fostering a loving environment within the relationship, because you don't want a person that you're dating that's just going to be all about themselves, And again, there's balance there, but I find women that are generally people pleasers tend to be the ones that are willing to be like, hey, you know what? Like, I was going to do this thing today, but I know you need my support in this area, and so I want to come out and help you. And I think that is a very good thing. Again, I think on the guy side of things, you need to be mindful of doing the same for your wife, where it's not always about you and what you want, but also about realizing that sometimes you need to sacrifice for her in order for her to get to a place where she's maybe more confident or sees that she has a true partner at hand, okay? But for the woman's side of things, yeah, that works out great. Another thing is that women that are people pleasers tend to have more empathy and understanding. Now, I will say, a lot of women that are people pleasers, it could be the result of they went through some major issues as a kid. And so they've experienced so many bad things that it's very easy for them to have empathy because they also want that empathy back because they've probably been through a litany of situations. And one of those situations could be one that you're going through right now. So you're going to find that in an attempt to better know you, a woman that is a people pleaser will have more empathy. She's going to dig more into your past and who you really are so she can get a better understanding of who you are. And it's always good to have a partner that at the very least is trying to better understand you so there's no misunderstandings about when you say certain things or do certain actions. Another advantage of dating a people pleaser is they tend to be great at planning and organizing. Because a person like that is so focused on making sure that everybody's happy and everybody's going to have a good time around her and give her good feedback, they tend to be great at planning parties and events. Like if you want to have a family reunion or if you want to have a situation where people are coming over, maybe you're having guys' night, she'll be the one to go in advance of the day and get the snacks, make sure the cable or Wi-Fi is up and running, and make sure that the place is spick and span. So that way when your friends get there, she knows that you're going to have a good time and you're going to thank her for causing that good time. So again, they're great at planning and organizing because they want to make sure that everybody's going to be happy at the end of the day. Another positive is they tend to be very loyal, like a people pleaser. Again, because she's trying to do everything that she can to make sure that you're happy, all that effort and energy, she's hoping there's going to be a return on that, which means she's typically going to be in it for the long haul. Like it's really hard to get rid of a woman that is a people pleaser because if you get upset with her, she's going to be like, but what can I do to make it better because I want to be around for the long haul? And again, that is overwhelmingly a positive, but there are negatives that can also be associated with that. Another thing that's great about people-pleasing women, they are great at conflict de-escalation. So let's say you come to her and you're like, hey, I got an issue, something's going on, etc., right? There are some women out there that will want to fight you tooth and nail and say how, well, that's not true, that's not a thing, and it's that you're doing things wrong, and I don't like this and that, and blah. And those women are difficult. They're difficult to date, they're difficult to be around, and in the long term, I found all that fighting with that person, it's their own stuff. It's their own traumas that they had. They weren't heard enough as a kid, so they feel like they have to fight you to be heard instead of just sitting there and talking, right? But I have found that women that are people pleasers, they don't want to fight. They don't want to argue. they're also willing to actually look and say objectively, you know what, I could see how this thing I did annoyed you or upset you, and so I apologize, And by the way, for the guys out there, I'm not saying use this to your advantage and be like, everything's always your fault, lady, and you did everything wrong. No. But if you have legitimate concerns or legitimate things you're trying to bring up, a woman like this is going to be able to sit there and either de-escalate the situation or say, hey, let's sit down and talk about it because, whatever is happening, it wasn't my intent to upset you. Let's figure out what's going on and come to a compromise. And that energy is a lot more peaceful because I found being with women that are willing to de-escalate, it actually results in the long term in way less fights. Because on the one hand, you as a guy won't feel like you got to try to come in like hammers blazing and barreling to try to get your point across. And you have a woman that's sitting there that's like, okay, like I know that I'm not perfect. I'm infallible. Maybe I did do something wrong and I can take ownership of that, which makes it a lot easier to communicate in the long run. So that's another positive of dating a people-pleasing woman. And then lastly, acts of service. Women like this, they best express their love and care for you by showing acts of service. That you come home from a day's of work and food's cooked, kitchen's clean. Maybe they said, hey, babe, you've had a tired day, so I bought some tickets to your favorite football game or baseball game or whatever. Like, these are the women that are going to try to show actions because they understand, just like they want actions done to them, they understand that seeing is believing, and you being able to tangibly feel that she cares for you is another way for her to let you know that she wants to be around long term, okay? So these are all the positives of when you're dating a people pleaser. And again, inherently, these things aren't bad. But what I've also found happens quite often is that people pleasing women start to feel like they're getting taken advantage of. And they start to build resentment over time. And the biggest reason for that is because you as a guy aren't really monitoring what is actually going on with the person you're dating that is the people pleaser. Like, you're looking at all the times that she sacrificed what she wanted to do for you, and you're thinking, oh, she wanted to do those things. Or you're looking at all the arguments that you won because she decided to just kind of back away and not really cause a fuss and not want to rock the boat too much. Or God forbid, there may have been times where she's come to you and said, hey, babe, so I'd like to maybe go out on a few more dates, or, it'd really be nice if you talk to me in a different way because, I'm trying to be nice and cordial and blah, 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 blah. And then you as the guy but that's not a thing. Or, oh, well, she didn't raise her voice, so it must not be that big of a deal. And I have seen videos of, I've interviewed, I've talked to, I've experienced women who have been in situations who were people pleasers, right? Who would say after 10 or 15 years, you know what? I was trying to get my husband to change and do certain things. And I was saying it as nice as possible. I wasn't trying to cause too much of a fuss. And you know what? He just wouldn't listen. He didn't understand. And after a while, as hard as it was to do, because again, she's a people pleaser, I eventually had to leave that relationship. And then the guy sitting there dumbfounded, like, what happened? Why didn't I know this? What was going on? Like, how could I tell this was happening? And so I want to go into some of the pitfalls of dating a people pleaser, because the reality is there's a lot of people pleasers that come from this space of they're not comfortable doing a lot of things because it would make them step out of their nature. They're identifying as a people pleaser. So if they do things that aren't pleasing, it hits at their core. Like, it's almost like they lose their identity when they're not people pleasing, but they need a guy around to be able to help them with that, because if they don't, then you're going to see some of these things that happen that are going to result in a woman ultimately leaving the situation. So to start off with, pitfall of dating a people pleaser number one is they start to build resentment. So over time, they may start to grow resentful of always putting you first without feeling as though their needs are being met. And here's the thing, guy, is that some of these women, they're building this resentment, and you're thinking to yourself, if she had just come to me, then this wouldn't have been a thing. But again, they feel as though doing that is going to cause them to not be seen as a nice person. But the other thing, and this is the thing that women do quite often that annoys men, but amongst themselves, they get this, right? Is that part of them is they want their partner to feel as though something's up, or that maybe she's not as happy. And, guys, we're not the best at tapping into that. Women, we're not the best at tapping into that. We don't get that we have to train ourselves to start tapping into that stuff. And that's some stuff I'll get into later. But suffice to say, if you're dating a people pleaser and you're always getting your way, and she's always doing things you want to do, etc., then that can start to build resentment, which over time could lead her to just having a big blow up one day of you never listen and blah, blah, blah. And then she's just out of there, and you're sitting there wondering like, what the freak happened, you know? Another pitfall is hidden struggles. So because they're trying to seem like everything's okay, they may have personal struggles or internal struggles that they're actually dealing with, and they're afraid to voice those to you because then she's not looking like the perfect person. She's not going to be a pleasing person if she's telling you about internal struggles that she's having. But again, over time, this could start to impact the relationship because you'll start to see things that look like off kilter, like she'll start maybe acting differently than she used to, or she won't have as much enthusiasm about doing certain things that she did before. And you're sitting there again thinking, well, maybe she's having an off day, versus asking those questions. Guys, we got to get better at asking questions to women like, hey, what's going on? Why are you acting different? What's going on in your head right there? You look a little downtrodden today. Can I help with something? Like, because as guys, we're trying to avoid conflict, but sometimes you have to run into conflict in order to catch a situation in advance before it gets a lot worse. And as guys, I'll be real, we're not the best at that. We want to keep things so peaceful. We just don't want to ask any kind of questions, and it is to the detriment of the relationship. Another pitfall of dating a people pleaser is oftentimes they will lack assertiveness, meaning you may be doing some stuff that needs to be critiqued, or there may be some feedback she wants to give about what you're doing or what you're saying or how you're acting or whatever, but she knows it's going to rock the boat. And so this is where you might be with a woman, for example, that she says something that it just seems so light that you don't think it's an actual issue. Like if a woman comes to you, for example, is like, hey babe, I know the trash is still there. I've kind of asked like 3 times this week, like, if you're going to take it out. And she's saying it in a voice where it's very docile. She's not yelling at you. She's not getting overly animated. And so you think because she's not saying it loud, it's not a big deal. So babe, I'll just get to what I want to. And as I try to stress to you guys on these shows, anytime women bring anything to your attention at all, even if it's in the softest voice possible, I assure you, they were sitting on the side, struggling with how to say it to you, and were taking days on end to think about how to present it to you in a way where you would hear it and ideally do something about it, but not in a way that's so aggressive that you think she's starting to try to start a fight, right? So just know as a general note, gentlemen, anytime women verbalize anything to you, it's a big deal to them. All right. Just because they're not being overly assertive with it, because that's how men would do. And she's not a man. She's a woman. She's probably going to present stuff to you in a passive way, in a way that's going to be soft and feminine leaning. And too many men take advantage of, well, she didn't say it hard enough. And so I thought she was just making it up, or I thought it didn't really mean anything. Just assume from now on, it always means something. Okay. She's not going to be assertive about it more often than not, especially if you're looking for a genuinely feminine woman that is leaning to her femininity. She's not going to be aggressive in her request to you. So just know when it comes up that you got to know, oh, this is a big deal to her, and just go take out the trash or do whatever request she's asking of you. Okay. Another pitfall of dating a people pleaser woman is that oftentimes part of their people pleasing comes from various, we'll say, mental health concerns or traumatic concerns. In the past, they went through some stuff. And so they're using people pleasing because they know that doing that gives them a better shot of being able to be kept in your good graces. But that she could be going through like anxiety or previous traumas that she hasn't gotten over yet. And rather than deal with them, she's just like, but if I keep everything happy, then everything will be good with us. And that, again, over time can start to spill over. But they might not tell you initially that they're actually going through those kind of things. And then lastly, another pitfall of dating a people pleaser woman is they have a lot of difficulty in setting boundaries, because these are the people that struggle to say no, because saying the word no is not nice. And they know that saying no could potentially not be pleasing to you. And so you're going to have a woman over the years that's just saying yes, and let's do it, and absolutely, and whatever. And you're never checking in to say, babe, is this something you actually want to do? Or did that opinion I just gave to you, like, did that actually gel with you in a real way? Or do you have an opposing view? And because men don't want to do this, they'll just keep dating women, and women will just keep saying, yes, 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 even the times they want to say no. And you got to step in, because here's the thing, guy, as much as, there's this thing up there, for example, like, no means no and yes means yes. And if a woman says no to a thing, then you got to just whatever. There are women out there that will actually, for example, say yes to your advances. It's like a second date. You want to take them to bed and they may not be ready for it. But on the other hand, they don't want to displease you. And well, this is going to eventually turn into something. So I guess I should say yes. And you have women going to bed with you right now that are saying yes when it was really a no. But there were ways for you to suss that out if you were paying attention. And that's an example of one of the things that we're going to go into in a minute. But suffice to say, guys, so while there are many positives to dating a people-pleasing woman, the reality is there are also a lot of negatives that, if you're not careful, could cause you to lose that woman or cause other types of things to happen that you do not want to happen. So with that said, what is it that you as a guy can actually do to help people-pleasing women break their cycle? Now, as a disclaimer, I will say this, especially to the ladies watching, I wholeheartedly believe that it is all of our own jobs to handle our crap and fix it. So I'm saying to you guys that at the end of the day, she needs to be doing the majority of the work in terms of if she needs therapy, if she needs to, talk about past issues with people, if she needs to go through whatever work she needs to go through to get off that journey of being a people pleaser. At the end of the day, that is something that is in her control to fix. So this is not me saying you as a guy need to go in and completely fix her people pleasing ways so she's not that way anymore, because that's not your job. But with that said, if you're deciding to date a person that you come to find out actually is a people pleaser, it is your job to start recognizing that and doing the things on your end that you can do to make that person feel more comfortable in not having to people please all the time. Because the thing is this, if it's a learned behavior, or if she grew up in a family, for example, where she was the one that was always leaned on heavily, and it was always her job to make everybody feel good about everything and be the one that's going to be pleasing to a lot of people, that is a habit that she has developed. And as much as we can say, well, just stop pleasing people, it's a habit. Habits aren't things that just break overnight. It took her X amount of years to become comfortable in the mechanics of doing that habit. It's going to take a bit of time for her to break out of that. So while she's doing her own work on that, you can also help facilitate some of the work so she starts to trust that just because she's not always doing what people want them to do doesn't mean that she's less cared for or less desired by you. So here are some of the ways that you can actually fix that. So to start off with, one thing you need to do is to start encouraging honest, open communication, because she needs to feel that she's in an environment where she can actually discuss her real thoughts and feelings, regardless of if they're uncomfortable or if you disagree with them. And a woman that has grown up in an environment where she got constantly punished for trying to not please people, this is going to be a hard thing for her to do. It's going to take time. It's not going to be overnight, but understand that this starts with, when you guys are having conversations about things and you say you're talking about like the election, or you're talking about something with religion, or just something that involves men or women, right? You might have an opinion on something and she might seemingly agree, but she might be kind of agreeing in a way where you think that there's more to it than what she's saying, or that she could be outright lying, at which point you got to be like, look, if you agree with what I'm saying, that's totally great. But I'm also the kind of guy that I'm cool with having conversations where we disagree, because I think that actually fosters more interesting conversations. So if at any time you feel as though I'm saying something that you disagree with, you ain't got to yell at me. Because sometimes disagreeing doesn't mean that one's right or one's wrong. It just means that there's a difference of opinion, but you're welcome to share that with me. And so at first, a woman may not believe you when you say that, but as you're able to put that forth more, and she's able to see that you legitimately mean that, oh, you're not getting mad at her when she voices a different opinion, then she'll start to feel as though, okay, I don't have to now change my opinions to please this guy. This guy's pleased with me just for who I am already. And so that's a great thing. So you can start facilitating that with the woman, and it'll open her up a little bit more to not having to tell you these false opinions or agree with you on stuff when she doesn't agree, okay? That's the first thing. Another thing, you as a guy need to start being more attentive to nonverbal cues. Women in their world are great at this. This is why women can say to another woman like, oh, I'm doing fine. And the other woman's doing what? Listening to her tone and looking for body cues that indicate, you know what? She said that she's fine, but I think I need to ask, are you really fine? Like, okay, what's really going on? And again, women are great at that. Guy in guy world, we'll just tell the guys, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm upset, I hate your guts today, I don't agree with you, blah, blah, blah. So it can be very hard to read into a woman saying one thing and doing all these other cues or using tones that indicate that that's not the case. but you got to get better at it because there's no excuse. Like there's no excuse for you to not understand that depending on the tone a woman's using, it means like I wholeheartedly agree, or I don't quite agree, or I'm feeling great, or I'm not. Here's an exercise right now. Look, you just ask a woman, how's she doing? Oh, I'm doing great. I'm having a great day. She said a lot of words. She had a higher voice register. That means she's actually having a great day. Versus, hey, babe, how you doing today? I'm doing fine. Less words, slouch shoulders, low tone. She is not fine. And the more you learn these kind of things, it'll be easier for you to get what's beyond the surface of what she's saying. Like guys are very good at like surface level, but you need to start reading 2 or 3 layers deep into what she's actually saying to get a better idea of what's actually going on. If you need help with that, you can go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and sign up for coaching, or check out any one of my programs or books, because I talk extensively about things like what are the things that women are showing in their communication that you're not reading, but that can help you to see if she's just trying to be a people pleaser or if something else is going on. But that's your job to do that. Another thing you can do as a guy is you can reassure her that it is perfectly okay to say no to you. Now, I myself have had to do this with women that I've dated, because the reality is, again, if they're trying to be a people pleaser, they know that part of the joy that you get from them is them going along with whatever you want to do. And that may be a thing that she's doing when the reality is she doesn't want to actually do some of those things. I'll give you a perfect example. I myself am a movie buff. I have an AMC pass. I go to the movies every week when new movies are coming out. And there have been women that I have dated that when we first start dating, they're cool. They'll go to a movie with me and go to another movie. But about the third movie, I'll notice that when we go to the movies, they're falling asleep, or they're just kind of like sitting there in a way that shows me that they're not actually interested in what's going on screen. And so some women, I've just asked like, hey, so like, are you like really a movie person, or are you just going with me just because you're trying to please me? And then some of will say, oh no, I love the movies, blah, blah. Okay, great. We'll keep going to the movies. But others have said like, I'm like, I really want to spend time with you. Just movies really aren't my thing. Or they'll say, I only watch certain kinds of movies. Like I only like sci-fi. I only like Marvel or DC, And so at that point, I could be the guy that's like, you don't want to see movies with me? You must not really like me. And oh my God. But why? Because the reality is I don't want to do all the stuff she wants to do. There might be a woman that, for example, likes to watch, I like chick flicks, but like, let's just use that as an example. A woman that's really deep into chick flicks or some other kind of movie, or she likes to go to certain kinds of events that I'm just not into. I wouldn't want to be punished by my partner for not doing that thing. And so I've had to tell women, hey, you know what? If you don't want to go to the movies with me or do X, Y, and Z activity with me, that's fine. We already have so many other things together that we like. I don't need you to like every single thing. So if I ask you, hey, do you want to go see this thing? Do you want to go do this thing? You're totally in your right of state of mind to say, hey, you know what? That's not for me. No, I don't want to do that. My thing's always, as long as the woman I'm dating is not stopping me from doing the things that I want to do, and it's not going to also yell at me or punish me for doing those things, then I could really care less if she wants to be there or not. Like I care about her, but I'm not the person that's like, we have to do every single thing together. And if she doesn't do it, then she just doesn't like me, and I'm going to be upset about that. Like, why? But there are many women that have been in those kind of relationships where they want to do something separate from the guy, or they don't want to do all the activities that the guy wants to do. And when they try to tell the guy that, again, in a nice way, the guy flips out, gets all butthurt about it. And then all the woman learns is, okay, I guess I got to do everything the guy wants me to do, even though I don't want to do it. Oh my gosh. And so you have to give women the encouragement that you're trying to do what's best for her also. And if that means her not doing every single thing you like to do, that you're still going to love her at the end of the day, in spite of her saying no. Now, obviously, again, you're ideally dating somebody that is agreeable to an extent where like they're going to want to do a fair portion of the activities, or they're not going to just be saying no to everything that you try to present, right? But for reasonable no's, even women that would give reasonable no's that are people pleasers won't do that. And so you have to encourage them, hey, if there's something you don't want to go to, or there's a movie you don't want to see, or there's an activity I'm doing that you don't want to be at, I'm fine with you saying no, as long as you're not going to punish me for doing that same thing. And you'll be surprised at that women will start to feel like they can trust you a lot more when they have things that they're not cool with, because it's like, you want that. You want a woman that's going to be open enough to come to you when things are legitimately bothering her, and when she legitimately doesn't want to do a thing, because that frees her to feel like she can be her true self in the relationship versus always having to acquiesce to what it is you as the guy want. All right. Another thing you can do is you can ask her directly about her needs, because here's the real deal. Women that are people pleasers, they have their own needs, they have their own desires and dreams of things they want to do. And sometimes because they're trying to sacrifice for the greater good, either they haven't really tapped into what those things are, or they've had to push them down for so long that they feel as though those things that they want aren't even that important. And unbeknownst to the woman at the time, that can over time start to help escalate the resentment she feels, because she'll start feeling like the world at large just doesn't care about her and what she wants. And you as the partner need to be showing her on all levels that you actually care about her and what her needs are, and that they're actually important to you. Because a woman that knows what her needs are and is actually going after them, that makes her feel better about herself, which in turn makes her a better partner. And then she'll blame you for being the person that opened her up to this idea that her needs are as important as yours are, okay? So that sometimes means, yes, guys, you're gonna have to dig a bit deeper. You know, that woman that's been like putting on, she's like a good drawer, or she's a good seamstress, or she's a good cook or whatever, but she's not doing anything with it. You could say, hey, so like, what are your dreams? Like, have you ever thought about like opening a restaurant, or, putting stuff on Etsy? Like, what are things that you really want to do? And she might be like, well, I've never really thought about it or whatever, which is true, because she's been putting everybody else's needs above hers. But you got to start getting her to think about what needs does she have beyond just making you happy. Like, it's good if she's doing things to make you happy. And again, guys, you should be doing things to make her happy also, but that should not be her full identity. And even if she's trying to make it that, because hey, there are women that are stay-at-home moms that really want to take care of the kids and want to take care of their husband. And those aren't bad things, but that doesn't mean that if you weren't to ask her a little bit deeper about other things she wants to do, that she doesn't have those desires there. So just be mindful of that and understand that sometimes you're going to have to be the one to take lead on that, because she's never been in the practice of being around people that want her to express those things, Another thing you need to do is you need to foster independence. So anytime I've been in a relationship, I have always encouraged women to not sacrifice their entire lives for me. I want them to continue to hang out with their own friends. I want them to pursue their other hobbies or interests. If they were doing certain things before, I don't want them to sacrifice those things just to make me happy, because I found that's not going to make me happy. Like, and maybe it's because I'm an introvert, but a woman just being around me nonstop all the time and being at my beck and call all the time, as an introvert that needs his space, I recognize that gets annoying. And that even as a woman, as much as she may love me, she may want to have times where, hey, I want to go watch a stream of my favorite person for like an hour or two and not have to be around me. And I don't take that personally. And so many guys do. So you got to tell her, hey, you know what? Like, I know that you're sacrificing yourself to please me or the family or the kids or whatever, but hey, have you considered taking time to yourself, going to a spa, having a day to yourself, having a weekend to yourself? My brother's been married for X amount of years, and there'll be sporadic times throughout the year where it's just like, hey, you know what, babe? I got the kids this weekend. You go hang with your girlfriends. You go to a hotel and just chill out for the weekend. And that works because, again, that's him recognizing that even though she's a wife and a mother and all this other stuff, there was a point in time where she wasn't all that, and she was just to herself. And women also need that time to get just to themselves, but they often feel in a relationship that the guy is going to be displeased if she asks for that time. You be the guy that goes in and says, I am already going to give you that time. Again, not that they need to be given that, but some women need to be told that it's okay for them to have that time and that it's not going to be to the detriment of her self-identity or you feeling that she's less than for not being a complete sacrificial lamb all the time. Okay. And which also goes to another thing you can do is affirm her value beyond what she does when she's pleasing others. Mention you appreciate other qualities about her, how well she does at whatever talent she has, her intelligence, her creativity. Like, women, to be fair to them, they get a lot of praise for when they are, in fact, being people pleasers. And that is to the detriment, because then they just feel the only value I have is when I'm people pleasing. So you need to be the guy that goes in and says, hey, I appreciate when you're doing for me, but I also recognize and appreciate when you're doing for you, when you're going after the things that you truly want. Like, women need to get praise for that also, so they can get out of this idea that they're only good if they're sacrificing, because that should not be what their reality is, even though that's what they're taught. And then also, you as a guy, I find it's easier for women to get that it's okay to have boundaries if it's modeled for them. So I have found that a big motivator for a lot of women that I've dated to start getting into the space of doing more for themselves is looking at me. I'm a person that if I want to do a thing, I'm going to do it. If I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to say the things that I feel and think about in a respectful way, but I'm not one to bite my tongue about, well, I feel this way. And then somebody's like, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, I already feel that way. So I'm not going to sacrifice or try to agree with you now because you are disheartened by what I'm saying. And so unfortunately, women have been taught, because they've been taught that like they need to sacrifice for others, that also means sacrificing their thoughts, their feelings, activities they want to do. And I have found that how they're able to break out of that really depends upon the guy that they choose as a partner. If you as a partner are able to model for them that, hey, you know what? I said no to this person and we're still friends, or I had a different opinion than my boss and I still got that raise, and then in your own relationship, you can tell her, hey, you know what? Like, I'm trying to establish some boundaries for us in this relationship. And so I don't want you always saying yes to me. And I don't want you to think you have to hide things. And then you can give an example of doing that on your end of things by saying, hey, as an example, like you did this thing the other day and it was displeasing to me and I want to talk about it. But I want you to know that A, that doesn't make you love me. That doesn't make me love you any less. And B, I recognize that me telling you this isn't going to make you love me less than you do now. And I want it to be the same way for you. And as you're able to model that, if she has not been able to see that happen before, she'll now be able to have an archetype to follow of, okay, these are how I can set my boundaries. These are ways that I should be respected in the future, regardless of if I agree with this person or not. And you're going to find that that's going to be a really great way to start to break down some of the ways that this woman is being a people pleaser to you. Okay. Because again, I've talked to and seen a lot of women that if a guy would have just done this stuff, because again, if she hasn't been modeled it, she may not know how to ask for it or what that feels like or looks like on her end of things. And hey, to be fair, you as a guy may not have been modeled that also. You may be a people pleaser guy. I have extensive videos on this channel talking about why it is women don't typically like guys that are people pleasers. You can watch some of those if you need help, as well as signing up for coaching at my website, introvertdatingsuccess.com. But suffice to say, guys, that you need to really look at the woman you're dating as a whole person and realize that, you know, there's going to be parts of her when she comes to you that may be broken, or that you're thinking on one hand, they're going to be great things, but in the long term, they could be to the detriment. Because like I said earlier, you know, I mentioned about the fact that, you know, there's going to be, for example, with people-pleasing women, there's going to be less conflict. But part of that's because they're not openly voicing the things that they disagree with, or they're not voicing problems that are coming up for them in their relationship because they're trying to keep things peaceful. But at the same time, deep down, they're wishing that you would come to them and say, hey, like, what's going on? What's up? What things do you see that we could change about this that'll better this for the relationship? And because they're not getting that, they're not seeing a partner that's actively trying to do his part to make sure this is going to be a union that lasts long term, right? So just a few other things that you could consider, right, is, you know, part of this boils down to a woman that is a people pleaser. There's some level of them that isn't fully confident that if they're not being a people pleaser, they're going to get people to like them or get the results that they want. And so part of this means you're going to have to help her build her confidence. As I said earlier, it is ultimately her job to be working on some of the deficits that she has as it pertains to her personality. But that does not mean that you cannot help her in that journey. And part of helping her build her confidence is simply when there's going to be times when, like, okay, anytime you're trying to go from one habit to a newer habit, there's going to be times where you're going to test that out and it's going to be bumpy. You know, as a guy, for example, if you're not used to being a leader in a relationship, a woman's going to have to let you do things that let you make decisions that are going to be like crappy decisions, you know, but you got to go through the exercise of making crappy decisions to be able to go through that experience, feel that it was crappy, learn from it, and then make a better decision next time. So there's going to be parts along the journey of her trying to break away from people pleasing that's not going to be feeling all that great to you. You know, there's going to be a time where, you know, you've told her it's okay to disagree with me, and then she's going to disagree with you on something you feel so strongly about, and you can't yell at her and you can't mock her for having what you consider to be a dumb opinion, because again, she's practicing this, you know, and she might even present it to you in a way that you're like, whoa, you could have said you didn't agree, but you said it in a really harmful way. So let's just kind of like figure out how to better say that. But I'm not going to try to change you from saying it. I just want you to know how to present it better, because again, she has not been privy to that exercise. Okay. But as you do these things, she'll start to build her confidence. She'll know how to deliver this stuff better. And then eventually she'll be the partner that knows that you believe in her. And she also, more importantly, believes in herself. Okay. Also, you can always encourage things like therapy, personal growth, self-help books, etc., to really get her going. I don't recommend anybody go to therapy for a long period of time, because I don't think it should take more than like a year or two to fix any internal problems. Y'all can fight me on that if you want to. But suffice to say, yeah, encourage her to get her own help. Encourage her to talk to other friends of hers that may be married or long-term relationships so she can start getting an understanding of like what it means to be there and how to be your own person without having to sacrifice all the time. Because again, we want you to better your relationships. And then also, if there's any kind of like resentments that she may have, one, you need to address them. And two, going forth on your end of things, guy, it doesn't hurt for you at times to just do check-ins. You know, my parents did check-ins in their relationship every 6 months where they would sit down and say, okay, it's been 6 months. So what's been working? What could be improved? What things have I done great? What things can I improve on? And again, they always frame it as like, what have I done good? What can I improve? It's never, what have I done great? And what have I done bad and horrible? Because we know that hits an ego. But you can have those conversations and say, okay, you know what? So, just so we make sure we're not building resentment, like what are some things that maybe happened in the past 4 or 5 months that in hindsight, maybe wasn't addressed, but that was like a major issue to you that maybe I didn't recognize it was a big issue, but that I could do better on in the future. That way you're saying to her, hey, I'm open to criticism, a respectful criticism, but I'm open to criticism and I'm open to learning what things I could be doing better. That lets her know that you recognize that, even though she's doing the best to be a people pleaser, that, hey, you recognize maybe on your end of things, you could be doing a better job to make sure that she's also satisfied and that this pleasing thing goes both ways. We're not trying to make her be a people pleaser all the time, but she'll recognize that you want to do your part as well, okay? And then you can address to her, hey, so these are areas that you could improve that I feel as though maybe you meant to do these things that you thought were pleasing, but here's how they rubbed me this way and why it was and what we could do better. And then having those kind of conversations will let a woman recognize that even if she's not always pleasing you, that ultimately you love and care for her and that these conversations are important to you as well because you want to always be on the same page with her and be as open as possible, regardless of if you guys are being pleasing all the time to each other or not, all right? So at the end of the day, yes, if you're dating a woman that is a people pleaser, that is not the worst thing in the world, but hopefully you'll take some of the tips that I said here and be mindful of why people pleasing happens, some of the things that could be negative about it, and how to be proactive in making sure that the people pleaser that you're with isn't doing it in such a way that feels so self-sacrificing that she's building resentment and eventually wants to lose you. Or leave you rather. So hopefully that's been helpful to you guys today. If you like some of what I've said, consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel, leaving a super chat. You can also go to introvertdatingsuccess.com to check out my ebooks, audiobooks, and other various programs, all of which are designed to help you date as your introverted self while still giving you your precious alone time. Thank you so much for checking into today's show, guys. I'm Harry Wilmington. Be sure to follow me on all the socials. You can find me at Instagram at Introvert Dating Success, and you can find me on TikTok at Harry Wilmington. I love you guys for supporting the show, and I will catch you guys on the next one. I'm out. Peace.